Morning, everybody. Welcome to Satisfaction this morning. Green tea satisfaction. Last week we had blindsided. This week, full satisfaction. So before we jump into satisfaction, let's talk about news from the shop this week. And this is on weeks like today. This week is one of my favorite segments because over the last year or two, I've talked about the great advances in all your abilities, all the things you keep demonstrating that so many other people who drink tea just don't know or don't have the ability to demonstrate. So I have a story of this. One of you wrote me an email because you'd received a gift. And so you did what anybody right away who's in the 99th percentile. That's a good thing, right? 99th percentile. What would they do? Take a close look and inspect the leaves. This person did that, analyzed the leaves, came to a conclusion and said, oh, you know what? This looks like a lot like Iron Goddess Light, even though it's from Taiwan. It looks really like it's Iron Goddess Light. So you know what I'm going to do? This was the thought pattern. I'm going to use Sophie's rules and brew this thing and see what happens. Brewed it, tasted very similar, knew that they nailed it, and then called the friend who'd sent the gift and said, oh, by the way, this is this, even though it's from Taiwan. Person confirmed and said, oh my God, you're in that 99th percentile. You should be a tea sommelier. So why am I telling this story? I'm telling all of you how great your knowledge is, how extensive your knowledge is, and how you, with that knowledge and following the things we talk about here, are having these incredible accomplishments out in the tea arena. And remembering that these are not genetically predisposed. You could go anywhere, including in China, and use these same steps to really nail down, identify, and then do a good job of actually brewing teas that you may not know exactly, or teas from an origin or a provenance that you don't know exactly. So congratulations, that's to all of you actually. It's really something that I'm seeing demonstrated over and over again. So this is one of the stories I want to talk to you about. Second story I want to talk to you about is we have more and more younger Chinese floating through the shop now. Seems like it's a trend this year. And so we had one in particular who came yesterday and talked about this young person is from Sichuan. That's where heirloom comes from, and was talking about, I've been in Sichuan, I never have experienced the teas that you have here. Why is that the case? And this tells you a little something. And in answering this question, I realize, as a reminder to all of you, we do go to the farmers and look at the farms, interact with the farmers, and actually make judgments. But does it stop there? The answer would be no, because after our judgments, then we have to shepherd this tea through the tea hierarchy in China. You can't just go, well, you can do anything you want, but if you go just to the farmer and say, oh yeah, send that to America, here's the address, and everything's going to be good, I wonder if you'll receive it. The chances are very low, unless all you ordered was 20 grams worth of tea, because the FDA requires that it get inspected. Oh, and you got to pay for that. Oh, and there's one other thing. When they inspect the stuff, they expect you to have an FDA number. Do any of you have an FDA number? The answer is no. Bureaucratic, troublesome, not worthwhile for you to do that, because you're not importing enough tea to be worth the while to do that. So it isn't you just go to the farm, oh, we like this, send it to us. No, it's we like this, send it to the aggregator. The aggregator, if it's at our small factory in China, they will actually do some tests on the tea to make sure it's what it really seems like it is. If it's not going to our small factory and it's going to another aggregator, all these aggregators are connected to factories. We have to make sure that what's advertised is what it really is. And I don't mean just the varietal, that if we say there's no pesticide on it, there is no pesticide on it. So we go through all of these steps, and anybody who's importing tea somehow has to get these steps taken care of. So this young lady from Sichuan was thinking, oh gosh, if you could just tell me which farms to go to, I could just bring this in for you. And the answer is certainly not, on so many different levels. Now, you notice when I started this story, I said we have a lot of young, new Chinese customers. And these are all people that are born in China or their parents grew up in China. So in order to be true to what I just said, second story. And this occurred the day before yesterday. Young lady, also from Sichuan, but from a different part of Sichuan, comes through and was a little cautious in her approach, first time in here, and eventually got to asking me, okay, what might this tea be considered good for in China? Now, this was a good question. This was a really good question. It was a cautious, careful question. And you could tell that she was a little hesitant asking me, because even though I have an honest face, it's not a masterful face like the tea master, but the tea master was busy. And so she asked me, and then as soon as I started going through, she told me what her mission was. And her mission was to link up teas with Western doctors. And she's been hired by an organization to do this and to increase their understanding of how the Chinese view teas and their relative values and some of the scientific research that's gone on around the teas. And then when she talked to the tea master and really got a deep understanding in relationship to traditional Chinese medicine, she suddenly realized, wow, I've been going to all these places looking for help with this, and no place has A, this type of inventory, but more importantly, B, comprehensive knowledge. This is why you are all in the 99th percentile. You have comprehensive knowledge. Comprehensive knowledge doesn't mean you love everything, but it means you know how to make a well thought out judgment about everything. I'm going to put your comprehensive knowledge to the test today, and we'll see if we're all satisfied. We'll see if we all reach satisfaction by the end of this session. So in the email I sent out, I said it's from Yunnan, and you probably immediately were thinking, oh, understudy error. He said green tea in Yunnan. I'm not used to green tea in Yunnan. Yeah, I know you got green javelin, but outside of that, oh yeah, you do have maybe one or two others. But this is truly from Yunnan. And you are right to immediately question. Maybe a mistake was, maybe I made a mistake. The answer is no, I did not. This is from Yunnan, and this was done specially for us. So that's the other characteristic of this shop. We get so many things that aren't on the market. These are done for us. And part of what we asked this particular farmer and the processing factory that did it for us was, hey, farmer, please go through certain steps and then deliver the tea to this aggregator. And this aggregator will take it from there. And that's what we did. And that's how this came into being. This is not tea that's on the market. And we did this because we realized that teas from this particular farm tend to be slightly sweet. And as such, we thought, hey, this would be interesting to introduce to our friends. So that's where the origin, and it's from Menghai. Both the producer and the farmer is in Menghai. And the particular village that this comes from is Pasha. And I sent you a picture for those of you who haven't looked at your email this morning. I thought what all of the relevant pictures were yesterday, and I left this one off. And this is a picture of a Hani, that's a minority woman in the tea trees picking tea. And I just wanted you to get a sense of the costume. In this particular mountain, Pasha is the mountain, there are 5 Hani villages. And so why haven't you heard of this place before? I mean, you've heard of some of these other famous places, Chiang Mai, you've heard of Nanoa, Labanjang, Iwu. You may have heard or come across these names that produce raw black or fully fermented or red tea. But you probably haven't heard of this. Now, Pasha means mountain river in Hani. So this took a name, and it's right in between Nanoa. So you remember we did the red tea a few weeks ago called Sparkle. That was from Nanoa. And we have other teas. We have Newman, which is a raw black, an aged raw black from Nanoa. We go to Nanoa. We took customers to Nanoa. So it's in between there and this very famous tea plantation or tea area, tea growing area called Labanjang. Labanjang in China is probably the #1 most famous of the tea growing areas in Yunnan, in Menghai. So we've gone to that place as well. And that place, the tea from those ancient and very old trees is very distinctive, very astringent, very, very pungent, and very expensive. Hence, we don't have any on the board. We actually do have a little stash here, but not enough to put on the board. So this village is between, or this mountain is between these two mountains. And because transportation is so hard to this place, you don't get that many people wandering up there. As the infrastructure improves, you'll get more and more. But let's talk about the terroir of this place. First off, it's in the mountains. So elevation, about 5,000 feet above sea level, maybe a little bit more. And actually, what I really should say is between the forest really is at 5,000 to 6,000 feet above sea level. And they've got ancient, they've got very old, and they have plantation. In other words, the monoclonal planted teas. But again, because the Hani minority is so intertwined with tea, they don't do those monoclonal fields the same way as you might find in central China, row after row after row, right? No, they interplant among the forest. So when you approach this area, you can get to a point on the road and you kind of look down at the village and it looks like you're looking into a crater. That's kind of the sense of it. And then all around 360 degrees, forest. And in that forest, is it only tea trees? Answer is no. It's the tea trees are dwarfed by all these other trees and plants that are going around. What's the watershed like up there? Is there any water in this area? There's a ton of water in this area. In this general area, there are 159 streams, small rivers, medium-sized rivers that flow through this area. So there's water. There's plenty of water there. How about the soil? Is it alkaline or is it acidic? You know that tea doesn't really grow in alkaline soil. And since I just said there's a lot of tea there, it must be acidic. It's highly acidic. So it's somewhere between 4 and 6. And why? And 4 and 6 on the acid scale, that's a huge, huge rate. It's like saying, oh, a 4.0 earthquake or a 6.0 earthquake. It's that type of difference. It's logarithmic difference. And the reason I say that is because some of the patches lower down have one set of acidic readings. Some of the patches midway have another, higher up have yet another. It's intensely fertile in this whole area because they're not doing anything else except this. So the forest is dropping the stuff, itself mulching and so forth. So it's a really, really very rich area from that terroir perspective. What's the weather like? Is it cool? It averages somewhere around 65 to 66 degrees. That's average. But it can get as hot as 91, 92, 93. And occasionally a day or two of 33, 34, 35. Not much, a day or two. What's the humidity? Humidity is usually at least 80%. So it's humid. Now I will tell you, during the summers, it's not just humid, it is steamy. Any fog up there? Ah, it's a tea growing area. Probably a lot of fog. How about on average, about 125 days a year of fall? So this is a perfect tea growing environment. You don't have much industry there. You don't have much competition aside from the native plants in the forest where these tea trees grow. And so you have this kind of ideal environment for the tea to grow. And again, the Hani people, because they actually have, from a cultural terroir point of view, this deep worshiping relationship of the tea plant. They believe that just like with people, if you treat the tea plant well, you'll get a good result. That is the core of their belief. So this gives you a picture of these people, this terroir. How long have they been there? They've been there for a long time. In the oldest village of the 5 that are in this area, of this mountain, I should say, they've been there at least 500 years. Why don't I have a more exact date for you? Because research is sketchy. So 500 years, everybody, yes, for sure. No questions asked. And by the way, it appears, at least under current understanding, that the people moved to this area some 500 or 600 years ago, and that they came from Laobanjiang area. So there is this relationship to Laobanjiang, and I keep coming back to Laobanjiang, and in a minute, you'll understand why. Not only as a origin source of the peoples, but in a minute, you'll understand a relationship between the tea plantations or the tea farms in Laobanjiang and the tea farms in Pasha. All right, before I repeat what I did last week, which was not good, and all of you became blindsided because I couldn't get it together to describe it fast enough, let me ask the tea master, Biju, to come up, demonstrate how it's brewed, and then afterwards to brew along with you. So pay close attention, because again, you're all in the 99th percentile. You're going to see some things here, which will be interesting. All right, with great pleasure, I bring forth Biju, tea master.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, just introduce so my name, but it's old name. Welcome United States. So, just pick up his name. But I like it. I use it just start, this year. We do, the green tea. So the very important. That's green tea, not red, not fully fermented tea. It's from Yunnan. We do so
Satisfaction.
So okay, let's say for everybody, we use this you can see the color. This green tea, Yunnan green tea. Okay, so focus the temperature, so everybody can judge it's low, it's best. We try. We judgment together. So yeah.
So you see her tableau as usual, 3 cups. If you have 2, that's fine. Assorted tea twice. If you don't have those, that's also okay. This you must have a strainer. And a tea tray is convenient for control of the water, but if you don't have one, there's various ways to rig up a good environment to make tea. And so what she's going to do, she's drawn very hot water, and she's going to heat the cups as well as make sure that they're entirely clean. And you notice she's getting herself into tea rhythm, so to speak. And I think you may have just noticed very distinctly putting herself into that tea rhythm. Making sure that everything is clean. And you can use any temperature between 170 and 200. But when you brew, you're going to use 170 degrees. So remembering that we're a bridge between Chinese consumption of tea that uses small cup and Western consumption of tea, which uses the supersized model. However, that being said, we still use many of the same principles that small cup users would use if they were making small cup in China. So dissipating the steam, aerating the water. It's very important. And it's one of the details and helps you also enter tea rhythm. You're not in a hurry. You see, you're trying to do a good job rather than be, oh, I gotta get this done in 2 minutes before that phone rings. And you notice that Tea Master touches the glass to make sure that it's the appropriate temperature. And it's getting ready here
Same opening.
to actually put the leaves in a heated cup. So before she does that, though, she's going to transfer one last time the water to a kettle that's easier to control the pour. The spout makes it easier. Puts the leaves in the heated cup. And then shakes. What are you doing when you're shaking? You're attempting to heat up the leaves, wake up the leaves. She pours on the side of the cup, trying not to hit the leaves directly. I have a 3-minute timer set up for this. And you notice, or you will in a minute, show you. You notice every tea has its configuration. Look at the configuration of this. So many of the green teas have something on top, something on the bottom. This, everybody is down at the bottom except for an odd leaf or two. Yes.
Question about the honey people. Are the honey mainly growing the tea in Yunnan? Mainly growing the tea in Yunnan is the question?
Yes, if I understand the question correctly, and I think I do, honey are basically located in Yunnan, and basically, I don't know what percentage of the population is in the city versus in the countryside, but if they're in the countryside, they're frequently, most of the time actually, involved in the tea industry. So, is there any real difference? Are they doing steps outside of the green tea steps? No. Pick, this is a bud and a leaf, slightly wither to make the leaves pliable. The factory actually applies green tea principles in terms of heating it very, very hot in the wok, and then a short period of shaping afterwards. And they do it by actually hand rolling and then a baking. Very simple, very straightforward. We're really talking about overall in a process like this, about 26, 27 hours, just like most green teas. So there's nothing really unusual in the process. Now, having chose this particular varietal right away, that's unusual, isn't it? So this varietal will bring the varietal specialness to this flavor. Yes.
How old are the trees featured in the photo with the two gentlemen?
The trees in the photo with the two gentlemen are between 1,300 and 1,400 years old, as best anybody can tell.
Another question, what is the vintage of this particular tea?
The vintage of this tea is last year. It came last year. And I like this vintage question. By the way, the timer's gone off and the tea master's separating the tea leaves from the tea liquor. Not in a hurry, simply steady rhythm. And I'm going to get to the vintage in a minute. All right. So let's first appreciate a couple things. Let's appreciate what the color is here. Slightly green. Green enough that it actually looks like a green tea. See if there's some aroma coming here. Oh, my goodness. Oh yeah, there's aroma. And let's enter the quality arena. So the quality arena is that place where we look at astringency, we look at aftertaste, and we look at energetics, as well as mouthfeel. That's all on the first and or second pass. By the second or third pass, we then focus on aroma and flavor highlights. So let's go ahead and enter. You don't enter, I'll enter. So since it's 170 degrees, I can take a bigger sip, and I did. And right away, I do have tongue feelings. And I'm getting a little bit of an aftertaste. No energetics yet, but I know that's coming. I'm gonna do this again. Okay. In addition to the aftertaste, I'm getting a nice aroma and a flavor. I'm building a flavor profile, which I'm going to add to with one more sip. Okay, I've made my judgment about this. It's your turn. So while Tea Master's getting everything ready, let me talk to you about vintage again, because I meant to talk to you about that in the opening comments. It's really a great question you're asking, because here, and as you've understood over the years, we do stuff that's only related to us. And at this level of quality, the leaves change year by year. We're not doing anything to try and standardize. We're not blending to, in quotes, standardize flavor. No, we want best flavor year by year. And that's why some of these are never fulfilled a second year, because the flavor is off or somehow doesn't meet our expectations, or the crop is so small that we don't always have access to it. And there's another factor. Oh, and by the way, you're getting your cups ready, and we'll talk about this other factor in a minute. So you're aerating the water, cooling it down. You drew 170 or 175 degree water. You've set your timer for 3 minutes. Tea Master has decorated the tea tray. And actually, you might think that that was only for aesthetic purposes. There's actually another purpose there. As you pay attention, I think you'll understand why. All right, and bag number 2 labeled Satisfaction, that's 5 grams. You put it in the heated cup. You notice just nice and steady. Warm the leaves. and then pour on the side of the cup. And then set your timer for 3 minutes. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about vintage and why that's important, especially at a shop like this. So many shops, it's not the same way. What's the difference? We're going out to the fields and versus so many other shops where they have agents who are going for them, they're not really interacting at that level. Doesn't make a difference. Well, in this shop, it sure does. And here's an example. I said I was going to talk about Laobanjiang and the relationship to Pasha. Turns out that because the flavor profile of the tea from Pasha is not so far away from the flavor profile of Laobanjiang. Actually, it is, but for most outsiders, they're unable to make that distinction. So, for example, in Laobanjiang, when they put together raw black cakes, they sell that stuff for some ridiculous price, usually somewhere on the order of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a pound. It's a lot of money, but they get that because all over China, they know that it's so distinct and so pungent. They know this reputation. People in China are willing to pay that. We're willing to pay to have a small stash. But what else do these tea farmers do in Laobanjiang? Remember, they have some relationship with the mountain of Pasha. When their supplies are running low, they actually pre-order. So before their supplies run low, they pre-order quite a bit of tea leaves from the Pasha mountain. And then they mix it in with theirs to extend theirs. So I ask you this, if you're a tea purveyor who's relying on agents, how in the world would you ever uncover this? In fact, if an agent came back and said, hey, you know, I got you this special stash from Laobanjiang, you'd probably be feeling happy because the agent would say to you, well, instead of, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 a pound, I'm only going to charge you $1,500. Already we're in LCS territory. And you should know that because the price of tea is the price of tea. And if all of a sudden you're getting a discount from what you know the price of tea to be, beware. So because we've been to, and by the way, the timer went off and you're separating the tea leaves from the tea liquor. And I'm still telling this story and I'll finish up this story. In order to know what Laobanjiang tastes like from the ancient trees, you gotta be there when they're picking it and then stay there long enough to see them fry it up and then taste it. And once you taste it, you will never, ever be fooled in terms of what should this taste like. Price tells you the difference. You look on the internet and somebody says, oh yeah, I got this cake from Laobanjiang. Oh, and by the way, it costs $49. You might be thinking to yourself, hey, $49, that's nothing. I should buy 100 of those cakes. Or if you're me, you're thinking to yourself, Yeah, I know how that got to be $49. They bought a bunch of tea from surrounding mountains. They put a strand or two of Baobanjiang in it so that they could legitimately call it Baobanjiang, although not really legitimately. And they're selling it like that. So this is what's deceptive in some of these areas. This area in particular, there are huge deceptions practiced on the Chinese public. And because the Chinese public isn't in the 99th percentile, they don't know. They fall for this. None of you would. Yes.
Some feedback from a participant. Very smooth mouthfeel. I get a sense of fresh sea greens, umami and grassy, but there's a grounding and complicating element I can't name.
Grounding, complicated, unnamed element, along with grassy, umami, sea-like, refreshing, fresh,
Smooth mouthfeel.
smooth mouthfeel. I love this description. I love every element of it because you not only went through taste and aroma profiles, you got me to an energetic. You said calming, soothing. And you probably then thought back, wait a minute, shouldn't it be calming and soothing because it's from very old and ancient tree?
Grounding actually for this comment,
grounding, I'm
but
sorry.
no, yeah, but and then another participant commented the warm leaves have a sweet malty hint of floral scent.
Ah, great catch. Warm leaves have a hint of sweet, malty floral scents. And this tea from this area, when it's done as a raw black, is frequently described with that type of sensation or that type of aroma profile. Great catch. So while you're thinking about this, let's continue a little bit about, I linked the vintage to also the ability to go to these tea fields. That's really crucial because that's how the tea elite in China, those with years and years of experience, prevent themselves from being fooled because they know to look for these things. So when I said that we do R&D at the small factory that we have in China, this is a big part of that R&D because we've been to these places, but also very importantly, since we still have those relationships, we're able to get stuff to go to the factory and then have people compare, the people who help us make decisions about, is this the real thing or is this an imposter? So that is part of why going through this tasting experience ends up putting you in the 99th percentile, because I've talked about scope that we give you here. We give you this huge range to make comparisons with. The other thing I asked you to think about, it looked fanciful when the tea master threw all these leaves on the tray. It was very aesthetic. And tea master is always thinking of aesthetics. But there's always another reason. Look at the size of these leaves. Now, for those of you who've had chara or you've had venerable silver tip, think back to the size of those. That's how you know, oh, wow, this is big leaved. And this is an early spring pick, and it's this size. Wow. So to give you some sense, by the way, of what the farmers and tea from an economic point have been able to do. So in this mountain, Pasha Mountain, and remember, Pasha is typically overlooked by most of the aficionados, by most of the, in quotes, the experts on tea. And again, it's not overlooked because of flavor, it's overlooked more because it's remote, it's not famous like these other mountaintops. And so the result is we're able to do experiments with stuff like this, and it's still within a range that it's affordable. We couldn't go to Lawanjiang and do this type of experiment. Just couldn't do it. It would be, well, we could do it for ourselves, but we couldn't do it for you. It would be very hard to do it for you because of the expense in putting that together. Yes.
Participant says, I'm getting a drying after feel on the tongue now.
So I love this comment because one word, the participant said now. So when I first took a sip, when I entered the quality arena, I didn't get it much of one either, because that's what this saying now implies. And it's only after I took 2 or 3 sips that, oh, yeah, I'm getting that astringency now. And for me, it's occurring in the middle to front part of the tongue. But in the beginning, it was so smooth and did not have that. And yet, was this bitter at any point? And the answer is no. There is not a bitterness to this. So typically, if you have the right source material and you have the right experts at producing, you're going to end up with something interesting. We knew we would end up with something interesting. We didn't know exactly what that end result was going to be, but we had tasted raw black from Pasha, and we liked the feel of it. And so this is why we did this experiment. And this is why this tea here at this shop, this is the only place you'll get this, because this is our experiment. Yes.
Participant asks, could you show the leaves again? Because her leaves are a little smaller by comparison. And yeah, so and I think she wants to make sure that she brewed the right tea, that it was the right tea in that particular bag. How does that look, Jeannie? Okay, great. Now I'm glad you asked.
Good. We're all on board.
Yeah, we're on board.
Good.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
What, you're giving back time to the participants? What?
yeah, I can't believe I'm giving back time. I had a number of stories set up, but they were in order, and I thought, you know what, I better not do it. I took extra time last week. If there are no other comments, then I think I will wrap this up here. The commentary that you made today was really good. And I think that the commentary that you're sending me over the weeks when you're evaluating teas and you're talking to us about teas, the stuff you bring in and show us, it really shows that you're all learned a tremendous amount. And we're just so excited at your progress. And you did well with this as well. You really focused in on the flavor profile right away. So I salute you all. I trust you'll have a healthy Thanksgiving and a good week coming up. And next week, we will do something very special. Special at the same level that Blindsided and this were special. These were special because small runs, very unusual. Next week, encore. This series, this set of three was not put together by accident. Encore is in a really, really fine yellow tea. And we'll talk about that next week. So in the meantime, safe travels during Thanksgiving. Look forward to seeing everybody next Saturday. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.